So welcome, everyone. You know, I love this theme that Dreamforce has for us this week, trailblazers. Because to me, blazing a trail in sales, it means that we're really creating a pathway towards success that's new and different, which I think is really critical. But it also means that we're helping all of those other people who are going to come after us be successful as well. And I walked into the Dreamforce big outdoor garden the other day, and I was met by this sign that said, "Welcome to Dreamforce, be your best." And I was instantly felt, really inspired. Yes, I want to be my best. I want to help you guys be your best. And then the dread hit me. I instantly felt this kind of dread, and I thought, what's going on there? And I realized it's because in the last 3 years in working with my clients, they've said to me, you know what, Colleen, being our best right now is harder than ever before. And it comes down to one thing. It comes down to change. You know, as we start to look at what's going on in the marketplace, there's dramatic amounts of change that are required. And I think it's fair to say that salespeople know what they need to do. And when I ask them, hey, what is it that you're doing in the field? They tell me what they think they should be doing. But the reality is organizations throughout North America, actually around the world, just aren't doing what is actually required in order to be a success. So I started my sales career, I would say my very first sales call was made in 1975. I won't tell you how old I am, but 1975, I went out on a sales call with my dad, who was in sales. And I watched him in his sales environment, and he was very successful. So when I started selling in the 80s, I did what he did, and I was a success. And when I started to lead teams in the 1990s, I did what my dad did, and I taught my teams to do what I was doing, and I was a success. And in 2000, when I started consulting, I started to say to people, hey, the markets are changing a little bit. We need to evolve our sales process. We need to evolve our behaviors. But really, we were talking about incremental change, small amounts of change. And in today's environment, for the first time in 25 years since I've been selling, I'm telling people that's not enough. We actually need quite a revolution, because in order to be successful in sales and to keep up with our buyers, we actually have to structure our teams differently. We have to structure our organizations differently, and we have to change the behaviors that our salespeople are doing in the field. So here's what's going on. When I look at the marketplace today, I think it's fair to say that marketing is doing a great job. You know, the first time in 25 years, I actually have had salespeople say to me, you know what, Colleen, we have an overabundance of high-quality leads in the pipeline. Never before have I had so many good leads, which is shocking to me, because usually sales and marketing are fighting with each other, right? Marketing has access to data. They have access to analytics. They're building AI. They understand our buyers, and they understand what needs to be done with those buyers to attract them to us. At the same time, buyers are accelerating their engagement in the sales process. Just simple as that. We can argue about where they are in the sales process and how much information that they have when they get into the sales process, but the reality is they are accelerating their behavior in the sales process, and sellers aren't keeping up with that. And what I find frustrating as a practicing salesperson is that in 15 years, sales closing ratios have not kept up with the advancements that other people are making. Sales closing ratios have stayed the same, somewhere between 27 and 33% for the last 15 years, despite us having a better educated buyer and more high-quality leads than ever. And what I've come to understand is that that's because we've increased the efficiency of the sales process, but we haven't increased the effectiveness of our organizations to meet that demand. So I'm a sales acceleration specialist, and I'm an observationalist. I don't really care what the research says about what buyers are doing and what sellers are doing. I actually care about what's happening in the market, watching what salespeople are doing. And what I find is this: sales acceleration is created when we have two things. One, we have opportunity velocity. So opportunity velocity means simply this: how many leads do you have in the pipeline? Do you have enough in order to hit or exceed your goal? And how fast are they moving through the pipeline? Are they clogging up the pipeline, or are that actually flowing through? Combined with opportunity conversion, are you closing enough? Are you winning enough? Is your conversion ratio somewhere in that 25 to 33%, or are we moving upwards of 35, 40, 50? And when we combine those two together, we get sales acceleration. Now, I want to talk to you today about how we're going to improve our opportunity conversion ratios, but I think it's really important for us to be realistic. You are not legally, morally, and ethically going to improve your opportunity conversion ratio above 50%. There are all sorts of things, you can read about them in the news, I won't name names, that you can do to improve your opportunity conversion ratio other than 50%, upwards of. But we want to move the needle a little bit in order to meet the demand that marketing is creating for us. And so the exercise I'd ask you to do is to think about where you fit on this continuum. If you have low conversion and low velocity, you're really dead on arrival. Right? That means you're not getting enough opportunities in order to hit your targets, and you're not converting any of them anyways. So your sales team is really doing nothing. On the other hand, if you have really high conversion but low velocity, then you're constantly behind. And everybody fits into one of these four categories. Because what high conversion means is you're closing a high number of the leads that you get, but you're just not getting enough of them in order to hit your targets. Now, you might be up here, where you've got high velocity and low conversion, which means your pipeline is kind of constipated. It's stuck. One of the funniest things that has happened to me in terms of analyzing customers here happened about 2 or 3 years ago. I was analyzing a pipeline, and we were looking at how many days opportunities were in the stage, and we were using Salesforce, and all of a sudden there was a letter in the pipeline. And my client and I were staring at it, we went, 2K, what the hell does that mean? We realized that the opportunity had been in the pipeline for 2,000 days. Right? It's a lot of days. We need to move opportunities through the pipeline. And then, of course, some of you could be sitting in this nice left-hand quadrant where we've got high velocity and high conversion. This means that your sales team is getting the right number of leads to hit or exceed your targets, and you're moving them through the pipeline in an incredibly fast way. So we're going to tackle this. If you're in one of these other three quadrants here, you're going to need some techniques in order to move into that top left quadrant and create that nonstop sales boom that we discuss, or sales acceleration. So the way we do this in today's marketplace is to really look at our sales pipeline or our customer engagement strategy in a different way. I don't believe that looking at it in a linear fashion is helpful anymore, because our buyers, our clients, don't look at it in a linear fashion. They consider themselves in a much more holistic relationship with us, where we have four quadrants, very much like a radar system, and we're looking at attraction, participation, growth, and leverage. What we're doing is we're spending equal amounts of time in all of these areas in order to enhance the customer relationship and attract new business to us. And if I think about my most recent and modern thinking on this, it requires not just some mindset changes and some behavior changes, but some structural and organizational changes as well. So let's look at these first two quadrants, attraction and participation. So attraction is simply finding the right leads in order to grow our business. And participation is my way of saying we're going to get them to participate in the solutions that we offer. First thing, and if you've been in any of the sessions in this room all day, you'll know that people are saying, hey, we have to sell the way our buyers want to buy. Right? Sounds like rocket science to a lot of salespeople, let me tell you. But here's the mindset change. We're not selling anymore. We're facilitating a buying decision. We're facilitating a buying decision. And those salespeople and those organizations that are hell-bent on inflicting a sales process into their marketplace and forcing their sellers into this linear process don't win the business. I was chatting this morning in the Salesforce studio about this, and I said, you know, it's not as simple as just asking the question to a buyer, what is your sales process? It's understanding where they are in the process, how fast they want to move through the process, and what and who is involved in that process. And salespeople need to start doing that early on, because the more we can get synced up with the buying process, the faster we are going to sell. The more we fight with a buyer and force them into the sales process, the more likely they are to go to the competition. And let's face it, all of our buyers have much more access to information and much more access to competition than ever before. We also need to get rid of the monikers B2C and B2B. McKinsey alluded to this earlier today. The reality is this: buyers are buyers. All selling is human selling, if we want to call it that. And B to all is the new way that a buyer is going to buy. The way I buy shoes, the way I buy jeans, is the same way that I buy multi-million-dollar telecom equipment for my organization. And until organizations start realizing that the buyer is in control of that process, at the front end of that process, they're not going to be able to capture all of that information. So we need to look at buyers differently. We need to understand where they're getting their information and be there. We need to understand when they're getting their information and be there. You know, it was interesting. I was on a sales call for a client, helping them buy some software. You know, this was about a $500,000 purchase. And what I found fascinating to me is that the sales rep was treating us in a very traditional B2C environment. I went online, I filled out some information, and I got a call from a lead generation marketing person. She asked me a bunch of questions, and then she said, "I'll pass you to the person who can help." So I got passed to a person that I thought that could help me, an inside salesperson, who proceeded to ask me all the same questions that the marketing lead generation person had asked me about 3 days previous. And I answered them patiently because I thought, oh God, here we go, right? I feel like I'm stuck in the 70s, but I'll answer these questions. Only to find out that he couldn't help me either because he wasn't the account manager, he was just the inside sales manager. So now he had to pass me to a third person as I'm going through this very complicated business-to-business sales process. So what happens when I get on the phone with the account manager? Any guesses? He asks me the same questions. Now, I'm going to tell you something interesting. We were shopping for a CRM solution. I kid you not. We were shopping for a CRM solution. So this company I know had a CRM that they were using to track the information that I was giving them, but they weren't sharing it internally with 3 different people who were all preventing me from buying the solution. When we focus on buyers in a B to all scenario, we understand, as consumer companies do, that the information that people give online or to those lead generation specialists needs to be used all the way through the process, and that decisions are going to be made faster. We were ready to buy, and it took this company 3 weeks to sell to us because we had to go through their process. Crazy. That's my Canadian accent, in case you're wondering, by the way. Just can't say process. Lastly, we need to transform the relationships that we have with our clients away from even partnerships, because partnerships presupposes an outsider relationship. Our buyers want insiders, peer-to-peer. We don't want to be sales rep to buyer. We actually want to be equals in that relationship. And this requires a slightly different education and a slightly different mindset from all of the salespeople that you're hiring, because they have to feel like they're equal to those people who are in the organization. Buyers want to buy from peers, not from sales reps, not from account managers, not from partners, not from vendors, not from suppliers, but from people that they feel are their equals. So if we look at growth, this is where I'm spending a lot of my time with my clients and where I'm most passionate. First of all, I loved what McKinsey said earlier today about hiring your A team, right? And then they said, sales turnover rates are between 25 and 40%. And they were kind of shocked by that. And I was saying, hallelujah! They actually probably should be higher, quite frankly. I truly believe that you do not hire B players into your organizations and then work with them and train them and nurture them and try to hold on to them for as long as you possibly can. I believe you hire A players, and if they're not working out, you get rid of them quickly. Hire right or fire fast. You do not have the time in this marketplace to hang on to people who aren't serving your organization or your clients well. There is nothing worse, in my opinion, than a sales manager who says, well, you know, they're not hurting the company. It's better than an empty desk. I don't really have anyone else to put into that space right now. So, you know what? I'm not paying them much commission because they're not selling them much. So they're not costing me anything. Man, the opportunity cost that you lose having a mediocre sales rep on your team is enormous for two reasons. One, the competition is swooping in and taking up all those customers. Buyers are buying faster than ever. But two, and write this down if you're a manager, A players hate to hang around B players. B players love to hang around A players, right? And you will lose those A players faster than anything if they feel like they're playing on a team full of mediocrity. So we need to hire right and fire fast. Now, we also need to think about how we're motivating our sales team. I'm looking at that statement fondly, performance, not money, in terms of motivation. So here's something interesting that's working for a lot of my clients these days. They're getting rid of commission plans. They're getting rid of commission plans. Instead, what they're doing is they're raising the salaries of their salespeople, and in exchange for that, you have to hit target. It sounds a little bit Glengarry Glen Ross, doesn't it? First place, you get to keep your job. Second place, you get steak knives. But think about this for a second. They're raising their salaries so that they're getting their on-target earnings in exchange for getting on-target earnings. And then they're accelerating their pay for accelerated results. And as a result, we're seeing 80 to 90%, 100% of our team hit their sales targets. It is a bit of a revolution in terms of sales performance pay, but it's working in marketplaces where we're trying to attract A players. So it's something to think about. When we can have performance instead of money as the primary motivator, we are driving performance past what the sales goals are. And then lastly, everyone's a profit center. Your company can't grow unless all people in the organization are focused on growth. So I've had some really interesting experiences with my clients over the last 3 years where the sales team is doing their job. Sales team is bringing in POs. They are hitting their revenue targets from a sales perspective, and the company is not hitting their income targets. In February, get a call from a client in the aerospace business. They said, Colleen, we lost $1.5 million this quarter. What happened? The sales guys all were on track. Yeah, our production team built the wrong parts. They shipped Q2's product instead of Q1's product. And when you're Boeing, and you count on rivets to hold your airplanes together, and you don't get them in February, you call somebody else. You don't wait until April or May. So who gets penalized for that? The sales team, because the revenue didn't get realized. More and more organizations are realizing that they can't accelerate revenue unless every single person in their company is part of that sales team. And so the revolution that we're looking at is actually thinking about our teams very differently. So rather than organizing a sales team as one unit, we're looking at organizing territory teams. Who in the territory is responsible for customer success? Let's actually organize our whole company around customer success. So we need a marketing person, we need a salesperson, maybe an inside salesperson, we need someone in accounting, we need someone in production or shipping control, we might need someone in quality assurance, customer service, and those are the people who are meeting on a weekly basis as a virtual team to figure out where the pinch points are in our organization. Last month, again, got a call from a client. Their Mexico operation lost a few $100,000, not because the sales weren't there, but because shipping forgot to get it out the door. In June, that company couldn't make their sales target because the supply chain, I just can't make this stuff up. The supply chain person who is in charge of getting supplies so they can make the product went on vacation, and there was no one to back up her position. So orders didn't get placed. So supplies didn't come in. So product didn't get made and product didn't get shipped. And so my thought around this and the work that we're doing is forcing teams to look at growth differently. It's not just the sales team's responsibility to drive income in your organization. How are you sharing information and communicating cross-functionally across teams so that we are absolutely growing by creating customer success? Lastly, we want to talk about leverage. So how do we communicate internally with our organization, with our customers, in order to leverage their success to attract more customers? And there's a couple of things here. Number one, preventive, not contingent coaching. So preventive coaching is where you're actually sitting down with your sales team on an ongoing basis and talking about what needs to be done in order to be successful. Far too many sales leaders practice contingent coaching, which simply is, I'm catching you doing something bad and we're going to talk about it right now. Right? Do that too often and the sales team feels unloved. Preventive coaching is where we're with our team constantly looking for ways to improve. I think the ladies from McKinsey earlier today said managers should be spending 50% of their time out in the field doing observational coaching, riding along with a view simply to capture what best practices are working and how they can leverage that for the rest of the team. And that's the way we drive success. It actually dovetails really nicely into my second point there, which is have your best men to your rest. So I'm going to go on record, stare straight at that camera and broadcast to the greater worldwide view, 170,000 Dreamforce attendees, and be the first sales consultant to say, the last thing you need in your organization is another sales trainer. I honestly believe you do not need more outside expert sales training inside your organization to make it great. I believe what you need to do is leverage the best practices of what's working in your market today. Every single one of your organizations has at least one person who is hitting their target, right? In today's market, selling your products and services in today's buying environment. Why don't we capture what they're doing and actually train the rest of the people to do that as well? As a sales manager, you can capture that by observing, getting evidence of what they're doing in the field. You can use those people as mentors. Now, I don't mean take them out of the field and actually use them as trainers, because of course we want them out there selling. What I mean is use them for onboarding. You know, there's a client of mine in the room today, actually, and he said one of the greatest things to me like 2 years ago that really got my wheels thinking about this. He said, you know, you guys always tell me that it takes a year to onboard a sales rep and make them productive. We need to do that in 6 months. And I thought, that is such an interesting challenge. How do we do that? And it came to me instantly. Use your best sales reps. Don't put your new people in a classroom. Actually send them on the road and just watch what the best people are doing in the marketplace. Use those best sales reps during sales meetings to share best practices. Use those sales reps in front of other customers. Use them as closers, use them as openers. You don't have to take them out of the field for more than, a few minutes every single month. But if you do that, what happens is you drive all of your B players into A players, because they look at those guys and they see themselves. They say, hey, you know what? If he can do it or she can do it, I can do it, which is far more powerful than taking outside information and driving it into your organization. Lastly, communities, not partnerships. So what do I mean by this? Well, I'm a little tired of companies talking about tribes, for one, because tribes are warring factions. Do you want your customers warring with each other? Or do you actually want them sharing information with each other? And I think that partnerships still presuppose an outsiderness, if that's an English word, that we don't want, and that's not going to help us drive revenue. So what I'm encouraging is for us to create communities of practice or communities of sharing. How do we do that? Well, we drive communities by creating likeness. We use our customers in an environment where they're sharing data, they're sharing success stories, they're sharing challenges, and they're sharing that not just with themselves as a community, they're sharing it with your sales reps, your company. They're sharing it with your prospects. You're using them in your marketing material. You're using them as testimonials. You're using them as case studies. They're advocating on your behalf, and they really become your secret sales force. Because we know that more than anything in the marketplace, customers believe customers first. Customers believe customers first. They then believe the retail channel or the distribution channel or the sales rep, and then they believe you. There was a study done by Yahoo a number of years ago that said that buyers only believe 12% of what companies say about themselves online. Now, that doesn't mean to say that buyers are looking at our marketing and saying, "Oh, that's a big lie," but they know that we wrote it. Right? No different. You go into Best Buy and you want to buy a stereo, and when the sales rep says to you how great something is, you say, "Well, of course you say that. You're the sales guy." But as soon as our friends tell us or other customers tell us, we believe it. And companies don't do this well enough in their organizations. I am always shocked when I'm working with organizations and we bring sales reps in from across the country. I get a guy from New York and a lady from LA and someone, from Chicago sitting at the table together, and the guy from New York tells a success story, and the guy from Chicago says, "We sell to them?" The guy from LA says, "We sell to that industry?" They don't use the information and share enough. Those success stories are critical to your success. In my experience as a consultant, it's the #1 source of influence in the buying world is those real-life customer success stories that are created by our success communities. And if I had one piece of advice to all the sales leaders at this conference, it would be gather those stories and create them into compelling reasons to buy. So when we think about this in terms of creating a nonstop sales boom, what I've shared with you today is some of my latest thinkings on a book called Nonstop Sales Boom that came out a couple of years ago. And it is available for you at the back of the room after this session, actually across the hall, I think. And I've got enough copies for everyone in the room, and if you need more, grab one of the cards that are there and I'll ship it to you for free. One of the things that I am going to do, because I know I only had 25 minutes today, is dive into this in a little bit more detail in a master class. So when you leave the session today, get scanned. We'll send you an invitation for a master class on October 28th, and we'll spend an hour diving into each of these 4 sections in a lot more detail with actionable steps that you can take to move yourself into that upper left-hand quadrant. So thanks so much for being here today. Enjoy the rest of the session, and I'll be around for any questions.